Uh, I am now starting the recording, and then I will share my screen. And yes, so here is the agenda. And as you noticed, Daniela is here, and she will help us to create a resonant field with her singing bowls. And then we will, Barbara will talk about the deepest heart desire groups in the context that they should be, which is a part of the total evolution. And then we will give some brief updates about some things that are going on, but we will basically, as you can see, devote 1 hour to Jean and John and the open heart process, because they have been working for such a long time in such a deep way on creating intimate groups, and we are just starting as amateurs to get into this. And many of us, especially those who have been part of Jean and John's process, suggested that we should really listen to them and assimilate the wisdom and guidelines that they have that we could benefit from. And then I'll just go through some practicalities towards the end, and then I will invite Heinz and Barbara and anybody else to make some summary. And since we are so many people, and I will, and there's so much background noise from everybody, or there may be. So have everybody on mute and unmute you whenever there is something that you want to say. So send a signal by raising your hand and I will unmute you. So Daniela, with that, I'll try to find you on my list here and unmute you. I have, that is the hardest part, to find people. Let's see. Oh, you are called Liz Gibbs. I see.
I see.
Okay, that's right.
Oh, you could unmute yourself. Wonderful. Fantastic.
All right.
Then I will mute myself. So I will leave it to you, Daniela.
Okay. So I just invite us to just breathe in, being present here in the moment. And I will be chanting HAUM, Homo Amore, Universalis Manifested. And inviting all of you to go ahead and do the same if you care to. It's a Haum, Haum, and amplifying that with the bowls. And using the invitation is to integrate this into your practice as a way of using an acronym for the vibration and really integrating it fully into your system. So with that, I'll begin.
Thank you so much, Daniela. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Brings back good memories from Sunrise Ranch.
Many blessings to all of you. Thank you for your continued work and service.
So I suggest we hand over to Barbara then. I guess you can unmute yourself. Or I can do it.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for all the wonderful, wonderful work you're doing with the Deepest Heart's Desire. And I have a heart's desire, which I want to share with you just briefly now, but then in greater depth at another time when we will do a special event. As you know, Deepest Heart's Desire arose up out of Awaken the New Species. We had almost a year long of being together using mainly the 52 codes. And the 52 codes are taken from my journal. They are not the evolutionary story and context out of which Deepest Heart's Desire is most empowered. So I've said to Ole that I would like at another time to do an hour-long overview of the whole story and how Deepest Heart's Desire comes up from the hub of the wheel of co-creation, carries within it the frequency of evolution itself, and is an integral part of the whole story, which when one does the Deepest Heart's Desire and doesn't fully know the whole story, it's incomplete, particularly for people who have not even taken the Awaken the New Species course. So I'm going to take just a moment here to say what I think is the context and the new story out of which Deepest Heart's Desire has arisen and belongs. And here it is, as you all know, very simply, but just to repeat it for a moment, take the perspective of a universal humanity already. We're already beyond the current phase of planet Earth. Now envision what it took to get us right here with your evolutionary eyes. And what you will see is source, inspiration, the invisible process of creation. It creates a big bang that has intrinsic in it, in the most astonishing way, the capacity to form energy, matter, and life. Therefore, we can see that it really has been a divine inspiration to begin with. And without going into any details, we all know this amazing story that the universe got from quarks and electrons and protons, and then into single cells, multi-cells, animals, humans, and us. And it got there in a specific way that is deeply related to Deepest Heart's Desire. And Deepest Heart's Desire, for me, not just for me, but for its origin, if you look at the spiral of evolution, and you'll see running through it a process of creation on the inner plane. It's invisible. But what that is, it's the self-organizing universe. And what that universe does, with 5 mass extinctions before we got here, it selects for species able to connect deeply through the heart to create a whole greater than the sum of the parts that holds within it more consciousness, more freedom, and more love. So what has happened in our generation when we're at the basis of a possible 6th mass extinction is that there is arising on this earth millions of people all over the planet who are moved from within by the desire for more consciousness, more freedom, more love, and more life. And they're self-organizing in many, many different forms and multiple small groups worldwide. The reason I bring this up is that the Deepest Heart's Desire is a group that originated from the understanding of how that inner impulse of evolution has been working for billions of years. And if you can visualize with me at the wheel of co-creation, and you see the hub and you see the spiral going through it, the deepest heart's desire sits in the hub of the wheel of co-creation, where desire, if it's your deepest heart's desire, is coming to you from the impulse of creation, deeper possibly than your conscious mind. And when you cultivate that deepest heart's desire at the hub of the wheel, realizing it's going towards more consciousness, more freedom, more love, and you are able to resonate with others around their own deepest heart's desire, which is an unusual kind of group. It's not a group for everybody to join together, but for everyone to become ever more unique. So I want to share with you that the knowledge and the incarnation of the nature of the invisible process of creation, the self-organizing universe, the creative source or God, is at the heart of the hub of the wheel of the deepest heart's desire groups. And when these groups are cultivated from the point of view of their situation at the origin of the next stage of evolution collectively on the planetary scale, then they become something more than a life purpose group, or something more than a personal resonant field, which we've had so many of. They become, I believe, they become beacons of the impulse of evolution. And when those deepest heart's desire groups self-organize and self-connect in the context of the planetary birth of a new species, they will be empowered to do their work in the world. Whereas if they are coming in separately as lovely small groups, they're good, but they're not where they came from. So I will be doing, within a couple of weeks, an hour-long overview, free of charge, to everybody who's doing Deepest Heart's Desire groups and other groups, to join together and to become aware of what the impulse within the Deepest Heart's Desire group can be. And what happens, I'll just say, like for me, personally, what happens is you and the impulse of evolution become one. The true deepest heart's desire is that impulse and you as one, and you become something more, and you become something new, and you become something that you might say is inspired by the deep process of creation. I'm enormously grateful to Jean and John for bringing in this extremely important process, because it's so true that deepest heart's desire, without knowing how to care for each other, without loving each other and knowing what to do when you have breakdowns in relationship, will never result in giving their gift to the world. And so I feel we are very, very grateful and glad that you're with us, and that everybody who does Deepest Heart's Desire should be doing the open heart and should also be understanding that we're going towards cosmic consciousness. We're going probably towards becoming shared contact with other species. So I am going to just complete this by saying it would break my heart to see Deepest Heart's Desire be independent from the process of creation and the source for which it was designed and given to all of us during a year-long event and many other, and I want to thank you, Ole, so much for undertaking to spread this, and Freed and all the rest of you. And I ask you to join me for that 1 hour where we're going to go deeper. And I hope Jean and John can be with us as well. I would like the Deepest Heart's Desire group to make a huge gift to the evolutionary story of creation in the context of the moment of evolution when we're either going down or going forward. This Deepest Heart's Desire group plays an essential role, and that's why I created it. That's why we invented it together. That's why everybody loves it so much. And I'm complete now, and I turn it back to you, Ole, if in case you would like to say anything in response to this. Whoops.
You're muted.
I did. Yeah.
So now you should be able to hear me.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we made a fantastic discovery during our year together. So, because after the personal awakening, the logical next step, the desired next steps, is to share the intimacy with other people. And the starting point are our small intimate groups. And we have all been sharing the glory of that. And it's one step on the way to making a better world, one step for co-creating a better world together. So yes, we should really cherish this and respect what we are doing and continue to develop it. And that's the reason we have invited Jean and John. I don't know, Heinz, would you like to?
Do you know the date when we'll be doing this event?
It's scheduled for the 19th of February, which is a Tuesday, and we'll have a follow-up email for this call that has resources for that and other things.
Do you know what time it's happening?
It's currently scheduled for 10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sherwood. Okay. Excuse me, Ole, please continue.
Do you want to say something about the evolutionary ambassadors, Sherwood or Barbara?
Yes, I would like to. Thank you. We will be offering with Humanities Team, just as we offered Awaken the New Species, a 12-week program called Evolutionary Ambassador Academy. An academy is a new component here because it's a place to start collecting and connecting ideas that are changing the world. It's a mimetic code we're working with here. It is something that we would like to preserve. So the purpose of Evolutionary Ambassadors is specifically for people who would like to take this work out into the world in all the different fields like health, education, business, science and technology. And we will have well-known people from those different fields, for example, like Christopher Life for politics, and Carolyn and Makasha will come in for co-creation. And we invited Irvin Laszlo, and we've invited people who themselves, but not just to give us a lecture, but to be a connection of influencers and large scale numbers of people already trying to change the world in those areas. So that I hope that everyone here will consider taking the Evolutionary Ambassador 12-week program, and that this would empower us to be taking not only Deepest Heart's Desire into the world, but the whole world's view that it goes with. And we will be hopefully ambassadors for evolutionary change at an even larger level. And I would love so much to have any of you with me. Thank you, Ole.
Okay, we have put up another point which about the spreading of the small intimate group concept, because we are experiencing that people are wanting to do this, and Cindy, you are one of the people who have felt this most clearly, I think, in your surrounding. So would you like to say something about that? If we can unmute you.
We can't hear you, Cindy. You're muted.
Oh, hey, Am I good? Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I come in. I just have a lot of enthusiasm, you know, for the power of, well, number one, what we gathered, you know, from being on this 52-week course and learning from Barbara, and then coming together on a smaller scale in small groups and really getting intimate and feeling comfortable with each other, sharing, you know, what we can't share with our friends and family because they're not in the same, you know, headspace. And I'm in a big circle of influence in my community because I've been involved in the healing arts for 20 years. So it comes easy to me to share with people because I'm already associated with a lot of people that are awakening. And so I find, like, say through yoga, like if, you know, we can share this through, you know, yoga studios, they're already open. And then just the conscious expo that I'm going to be doing, these are people that are seeking what we're all awakening to, I guess. So I don't know if that helps what I'm sharing, but I just talk to people every day, and people are seeking this intimacy and realness and wanting to change the world. And so I think that we can all find it easy just when we're out and about and start the dialogue and then share and then connect them with what Barbara's doing. And I feel like that's how we can help get the word out more about Barbara's courses and what Sherwood and Barbara are beginning to collaborate on, which is what Sherwood shared with us yesterday. It's a way to get more people connected to what Barbara's doing, I feel, because those people are seeking what it is that Barbara knows. So that helps.
Mm. Yes, I agree. I think there are now hundreds of thousands of people who are awakening up, or millions, and they want to find this what's the English word? They want to find the context where they can operate, and a beautiful first context is with other awakening people and just supporting each other. And then from there, it's useful to understand how this fits into an evolutionary context. And that's where we have gotten so much from Barbara, and we can also help guide other peoples to at least to share our understanding. If they want to take it in or not, that's up to them. But I think we have gotten a fantastic context for what we're doing, which makes what we're doing so much more meaningful.
And I do find that the qualities of the new species, the Homo amore universalis, the qualities, when I see those qualities in people, I go, hey, you are a new species. Those are those qualities that you're sharing right now. You're a Homo amore universalis. And they love hearing that, and they want to know more. So people are so, they know that something's happening in them, but they don't know who to talk to about it, or they're, you know, because, you know, most of us are steeped in this old paradigm, you know, still. So they light up when you share what we're doing here. You know, it's just amazing. And I'm fortunate that where I'm at, I have women coming through here that are awakening. And yeah, so it's really nice to see people light up when you point out that they're already, you know, awakening to that species with those qualities that they're already displaying. So it's nice for them to have something to go, wow, is that what's happening? So yeah, so that's it for me.
I would invite anybody to comment and see. It seems like you can unmute yourself if you want to say something, if you feel called to.
I think we can approach it from another way. I did mention it a little in the chat, that group is more than the individual, and the energies that want to come to Earth. It's no more possible in individuals. It needs a group consciousness. It needs a group. And that is one way why we are so much supported, I think, from the universe to start with groups. So the evolutionary next step is a group consciousness. It's a group spirit. And to be able in a group to represent, to hold that group spirit is something awesome.
Thank you, Fried. Well, there was a small point on the agenda which was about IT support, and we will just, I think, skip that because not much is happening, but Sherwood is working on something that we can share more about, maybe when we meet the 19th of February or at a later date. So I suggest we go straight on to Jean and John, the main attractions of today. And please tell me whatever support you need.
Ole, you just said something and we missed it because you got muted.
Well, I just said you can unmute yourself.
Oh, I did. Sorry. Okay, well, let's just kind of jump right in. The first of all, it is a real honor. And I mean that, I think, John, I can speak for John too here, to be with all of you, to see your faces after all these weeks and after all these months, and to know that by gum, we're still here and we're growing and we're expanding. So anyhow, I just want to say that piece. The other thing I'd like to say is we're bringing in experience that we've had over many years. Each one of you that is sitting in this audience, and each one of those that have been with us throughout the whole year, are bringing in experiences or bringing in expertise or bringing in other processes. What we're bringing in is simply one. There are many others that are out there. What we do know is the one we've been working with works. It's not that all the others don't, because they do. And over time, I'm hoping that you guys will be able to bring what you've been doing all these many years. I know, Heinz, you bring in the constellation work. And there are others of you that are bringing in various wisdoms that all of us together can benefit from, because as you said, Fried, there is something that is occurring here that is a group consciousness. And, you know, we can probably analyze that. Our job, mine and John's job today, is to share with you what we can. It is certainly not the process itself, as much as we would like to do that with you. It's a 3-day process, and we would end up bastardizing it, trying to bring it to you in about 45 minutes. So, and besides that, this is something that together we would create. So what you're going to hear today is just some of the information that helps to lay the groundwork. We are going to give you some information. We'll ask Sherwood and Ole to make sure that you get the information that may help when you come back into your small groups. I don't know if you remember, John, in my sharing at the November meeting, that as you begin to meet over time, the honeymoon period for many will begin to disappear. It doesn't mean that you love each other less. In fact, you probably love each other more. But it does mean that as you begin to navigate the waters of the emotional self, as it begins to surface, as the differences begin to surface, it helps to know that there may be a way to do that without drowning in the waters. And there are very gentle ways to do this. So before I go any further, I don't know, John, you have anything you want to say at this point?
No, we just, like Jean said, we can't possibly immerse you in the experience, but we will give you some guidelines that might help. We'll teach you a little bit about the stages that any group will go through, and that will help you to be more self-aware about where your particular deepest heart desire group is. And then we'll have some questions and answers at the end. So that's where we're headed.
But Ole, I know that is the whole call over at 2:30 our time. I don't know what it is on your clock, but
it's over in 50 minutes. So we should leave 5 minutes at the end at least. So just to wrap it up.
We'll try to leave a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
It may help some of you to know that, well, let me say this before I forget it. John and I are willing to travel to anywhere in the world. If any of you want to organize one of the Open Heart Process workshops, we're willing to travel to you, wherever that is in the world. We also are very clear that it would be very helpful if at least one person from each of the small groups can go through the process. So if we find that we're in Norway and you're close to Norway, maybe there is a small group, not just a small group, maybe there is a group of people that would want to meet and go through the process. We're headed to Australia here in just a few days, and we're going to be taking a number of people through the process there. We just got back from Germany, and we took people through the process there. So we're very willing to travel anywhere in the world, and also we have a number of people that we have been training for years who are very willing to travel as well. So just know you've got the resources, and we'll come to you whenever you might think that you need us. So just very quickly, I've been doing this since the mid-'80s. I was very fortunate to be trained by two masters who worked with Scott Peck. So when I first started with this, it was called the community building process. John came along in the early 90s and I trained him. And then what began to happen is he and I were bringing in other skills, and we began to incorporate that into Scott's process. And what we began to discover is that the process itself began to evolve. And now where we are, it's pretty extraordinary what occurs. It's not something John and I can make happen. It is the people themselves that create it. And I think we've got a number of people that are on the call right now that have gone through the process. So a little bit later, if any of you want to give your input, then we welcome that. But I can say that this is a gentle process. The one thing that John and I have become very clear on is that no matter what you attempt to do as you and we move forward, and you've heard me say this many times, the clearing of the hollow bone. This is really important because you can be as well-intentioned, a group can be very well-intentioned, but if there's a person or persons inside the group that are holding on to old angers or frustrations or anything that would do what we in Native American terms call blocking the hollow bone, then I strongly encourage you, make telephone calls, write letters, do whatever's necessary to get that cleared out of you. It's like cleaning a windshield. And the more the mud gets on the windshield, the less you can see. And what you're wanting to do, especially those of us who have said yes to this journey that Barbara has so beautifully offered to us, it's really important that we keep the hollow bone clear every day. And that's not easy for some, but it is necessary because what we're doing is we're bringing an entire species into another way of being. And so what happens when a group gets together and people begin to interact with each other, and you're coming in with the premise that this is all about love, which is what it is. That's the foundation of it. But the longer that you are together, the more the differences begin to arise. And when differences begin to arise, depending upon a person's perception of reality, what can happen is can be when the ego games begin. And it's a very, very difficult place to be for some, because often a person's not even aware that they may be stuck in some kind of an ego drama that began perhaps back in their childhood. It could have begun in another lifetime. Who knows? The point is it's existing now. So what you're wanting to do is create an environment where when you're speaking with each other, you're hearing each other. You're not attempting to step on somebody's comments because you think you may have the answer to whatever their problem may be.
Or you know how to fix it.
Or you know how to fix it, which is a challenge, by the way, when, especially when John and I have been working with groups that are enlightened or all healers, because when they see someone beginning to go through a journey that may be very hard for them, and it's natural, it's natural. You want to jump in there and help. And in this particular environment, what you want to do is let people walk through their journey. It's the way they will heal. You cannot fix it for them. But it becomes a very difficult challenge when you're in an intimate group and you have skills and you want to go in there and you want to fix. The best thing you can do is listen. And of course, there are all kinds of situations where there might be the exception, but I'm just giving you the general input right now. One of the things that I have a lot of admiration for Scott Peck for, he was able to articulate what indigenous peoples have been doing for centuries. He was able to identify what happens when a group comes together or individuals come together during a time of trauma, or when something very dramatic has occurred, an earthquake, a hurricane, a bombing, when something rather catastrophic has taken place. The natural tendency of most humans is to help each other, even if they don't know each other, even if they don't like each other. They will come to help, they will come together, they will pull together and help each other. And Scott began to wonder, how is it that I can help this happen on purpose without there being some kind of a catastrophic event? And so what began to occur was the creation of the circles, which indigenous people have been doing for centuries. But the creation of the circles where people are inside the circle long enough that the ego self begins to get very uncomfortable. Now, you leave people in a circle long enough, in a space, they don't get up, they don't wander around, going outside for walks, they're staying inside this space. After a while, what begins to happen is people begin to wiggle or do whatever happens. The differences begin to come to the surface. When that happens, chaos begins. Depending on how awake a group is, determines the depth of chaos that the group will go through. There are 4 stages. And we will be sending you this information. We have discerned it, deciphered down a short enough document that will have information that each one of you will have. It will identify the stages. We have guidelines, not rules, guidelines that we go by when we're doing the workshop. And I think John and I have talked about this. I think the guidelines themselves will be very helpful for the small groups. But I do, Sherwood had suggested when we spoke yesterday that we show you the stages, and we want to show you the stages that most groups will go through. It'll happen over a period of time, usually, but when we're doing the workshop, It happens within a day. It can happen within an hour, these 4 stages. So, Ole, do you have that first chart that we sent to you, the one linear chart?
Mhm.
Got that in front of you?
I will share that.
Okay, great. And all of you will get a copy of all of this. The 4 stages that usually occur are, first is what we call pseudo-community. Pseudo-community is what I call the cocktail environment. It's not wanting to rock the boat. You may have just met someone and you're not getting into deep conversation, so you're staying kind of on the surface. And I don't know that you can see some of the descriptions, but it's where you're nice to each other. And of course you're going to be nice to each other if you're in a loving space. But there's something about the pseudo community, meaning that it is on the surface. And I won't go through all the different descriptions of this.
So, but there are some important aspects of that. You know, everybody's just kind of putting their toe in the water.
Yeah.
And nobody really wants to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of trying out things. There aren't a whole lot of questions asked. And generally in that phase, somebody emerges as kind of a leader. And so everybody kind of looks for the leader because it's easy and it's safe because you can kind of hide behind that.
And then what happens is if you leave the group in a confined space long enough, what will begin to happen, as we said, the differences will start emerging. And that's where finger pointing will happen. We've seen this happen again and again, particularly in business environments, that pointing the finger, this person is to blame for whatever it happens to be. And before you know it, somebody else is blaming, then somebody else is blaming. And there is confusion. And what will also happen is when you're listening to somebody's opinion, you want to jump in there and give your opinion. You just want to jump in there and do it and not hear what is actually going on. And the breathing becomes very shallow. It becomes very quick. And when somebody is speaking, you're not really hearing what they're saying because you think you may have the solution to that problem. You may want to start fixing. There are all kinds of descriptions to go with chaos.
Yeah, I want to make a point that none of these stages is bad. And sometimes chaos, which we kind of also call the popcorn environment, the pace speeds up, and it can be a very creative stage. It can be stimulating, mentally, especially. And people, you know, in business, we use that on purpose for brainstorming, because in brainstorming, you want a lot of ideas to come up. You want a lot of ideas to come up. And it's not that important for people to listen to each other. You just want to capture the ideas. But in that respect, chaos is positive.
But when you go into chaos, when you're in a small group environment and you are wanting to really connect with each other, you can recognize it because people are not really hearing each other. They're trying to step on each other's comments.
And breathing tends to be shallow.
And the even laughter can be very shallow. It's just, and it's not hard to recognize it. It's an uncomfortable place to be. And let me say this too, is if you are in a group environment and you are attempting to make decisions, do not make them in chaos, because if you do, you'll have to revisit the decision that you made. This is one of the mistakes that business makes all the time, is they try to create committees to go off and solve the problem, while what's actually occurring is there's a chaotic environment that has been put into place. So when they come back with a decision, nobody can really hear it because they feel like they were never heard to begin with. So that's...
And actually, in business, many of the business consultants, especially in the 80s and 90s, used to foster chaos. They used to say, you know, the old adage was, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And the business consultants came in and said, fix it, otherwise it'll break. Yeah. You know, or they would say, ready, fire, aim. You know, that was what they were trying to do, was to speed up things, but what they were doing was promoting chaos within the environment, which can be creative, but it's short-lived.
It's a place of confusion. When a group has been together long enough, whether like in the small groups that are taking place now, over a period of weeks, the differences do begin to surface. And there is no doubt in my mind that those that are involved in these small groups, the deepest heart desire groups particularly, there is a real effort to come from love at all times. If, however, the hollow bone is not completely clear, then things get triggered inside individuals, and that gets brought into the conversation. And then before you know it, the whole group is doing this. You may not see it online, but the hearts just start beating faster, and there's just unsettled tummies going around. Well, what will happen over a period of time, and in the workshop, it happens within hours, someone will come through and start using I statements. This is important because in the stage of chaos, you hear a lot of we. You hear a lot of we all. We all feel this. We all want to do this. You hear a lot of the we all. And what that does is it keeps a person from accepting responsibility for their own statements. If you say, we all feel this, well, this part of we may not feel that at all. But if I say, I feel this, suddenly what I've done is I've created that talking stick, and I am speaking from a place of responsibility of my own feelings. And what begins to happen when a group has been in chaos, once a person begins to speak from the place of I, then you begin to move into what we call emptying, because perhaps something typical might be, I feel really uncomfortable in the group meeting today. And suddenly that shifts the energy within the group. And if the group's not ready to hear that, then what will occur is that they will step right over the comments that person may have made, and that person may withdraw. And you may not hear from that person for a while until somebody else comes up and says, I feel this, or this is my experience right now. I'm feeling anger or frustration, etc. Before you know it, what happens is one by one, the people begin to move in what we call emptying. And that's where people are speaking from their feelings. They are speaking from the place of I. This is where the tears begin to come. When tears start showing up, they are a gift. They are a real gift. They can be tears of frustration. They can be tears of sadness. It doesn't matter. When the tears start coming in, what's happening is then the energy of the entire group setting begins to shift. And as people more and more begin to share what is happening with them, rather than talking about some philosophical idea that's out here, or about talking about some circumstance that is out here, politics, religion, whatever it happens to be, they're beginning to speak from their own feelings. When that happens, the group begins to hear, and it starts hearing at a level that it cannot hear before that. And the more you stay in this, something else begins to occur. And
I just wanted to say that I know that the Deepest Heart's Desire groups really have been starting in a way that has promoted this emptying, because what you've done is, I believe anyway, is you've given time in one of the weekly sessions for one person to talk about themselves and to talk about the Deepest Heart's desires and that kind of thing. In the process that we teach, the emptying is not so much about a therapy session, it's about being able to take the mask off and say, here's who I really am, and to talk about, and to be, maybe even come to a self-discovery that these are the things that have been blocking me, and I need to tell you about them so I can get past it. and be authentic with the group.
Yeah.
That's what the emptying process is about.
Right. And then what begins to happen, and it, again, I said it at the beginning, it's not something John and I can make happen. Our job is to provide a container so that the group can move through its own journey at its own pace. What eventually begins to happen when people more and more begin to let go and are willing to show the others in the group their heart, then there is an energy that gets created that, and I think it was probably Scott that came up with the actual term, but we continue to call it community. In community, you begin to hear in a way that you couldn't hear before. You begin to be able to speak without stepping on somebody else's statement. Your breathing changes. You start being much more authentic in your communication. It's and the differences. We've done this with different cultures that have been at war with each other. They begin to hear what they couldn't hear before. It's an extraordinary energy that takes place, and we do call that community. So you'll notice that on the chart that you've got there, this is linear, but Uli, would you put the next chart up, which is the one that's nonlinear, please? Not that one, the nonlinear one. This is the one with the container. That's the last one we'll show. It's the other one that we sent you 3. Yeah, here we go.
Just the graphics.
Yeah, there we go. When you guys are looking at this particular, go down to the chart itself. We'll talk about the verbiage. Yeah, this is not linear, obviously. We've learned that when we're working with more awakened groups, individuals, they may not go through this process linearly. In fact, it's quite common for groups to start at the emptying. I mean, whatever they may have gone through, it seems to be a lot easier for people to be more honest with each other. And we have just experienced that the more awakened the group is, they won't necessarily enter through the pseudo community. They may not even experience the pseudo community. So the nonlinear is, it's an interesting phenomenon, particularly of those that are more awake. Now here's another thing. John and I, or whoever the facilitators are, we're holding the space so that the entire group can get to this place of community. But the goal is to get the whole community to come to the place to where they become the container. And can you go to the next chart, Uli? Because up to this point, John and I are the container. But here, you see the big green circle? This is where you're headed, is you want the group to become so healthy that it can hear each other. It can hear the frustrations without going into chaos. It can hear the sadnesses. It can hear the extraordinary ideas, but the group holds the container. There may be somebody in the group. There may be more than one person in the group that's going through chaos, or that's going through emptying, or who may be going through pseudo. But if the group is, as a whole, is healthy enough, it will have created a container so that no matter what's happening inside, the group is going to remain healthy. Okay.
I want to make a point here. The deepest heart's desire groups can get to community, and it's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful, almost euphoric kind of feeling. You'll know it when you get there. And maybe some of you are already there and are right here where this big circle of community is, and holding that safe space for everybody. But it takes work to stay there. And Barbara is actually very, very much on target when she talks about the evolutionary force that's drawing us forward, because one of the things, intimacy is an important part of the process, but the other important part of the process in staying in community is having a feeling that we're doing something important together.
Yeah.
Right? So Barbara, when she talks about giving birth to the new species, that's part of what it is that's important that we're doing together. It's larger than ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a very important component of it.
Now, the thing that, can we see everybody's faces again now? Well, thank you. Good. Most of you are still there. You haven't disappeared. We have guidelines that we follow. They are not rules. Again, they are not rules. But it's always interesting to me how there almost always is somebody in the group that when they start speaking, they start talking about them as rules. They're guidelines. We have learned that if you follow the guidelines, you will get from that place that we were talking about, wherever that beginning place is for you, to the healthy community that you're attempting to create. I won't go through the guidelines right now because we want to leave time for some questions. We will send them to you. We do encourage you to look at them, and if at all, you know, if the group's willing, to go ahead and incorporate them into how you are treating each other. It'll just help to keep you on target.
I'd like to talk about at least just one of the guidelines, and that is, it's the verbal counterpart to the talking stick, and that is when you speak in the group, you start with "my name is." For instance, I would say, "My name is John." Well, what that does is it means that I'm owning what I say, but it also means that I'm asking for the space.
Yeah.
My name is John. So wherever you are in your deepest heart's desire groups, particularly if you're going through something where you're encountering a few bumps with each other, and you want to make sure that you heard, start with "my name is," and people will know that you have something important to say.
And what's interesting is you may find this works outside of the group too. John and I we went over a little bump a couple of days ago. We're outside and John says, "My name is." As soon as he said, "My name is John," that got my attention right away. And I thought, I need to listen to what he's having, you know, what he's going to say. So yeah, I know that there are some people that have gone through this that have incorporated the guidelines into their own family circles when they are interacting in their own homes. So just take them. We send these things to you with great love. We also had to measure and talk about, are we bastardizing the process by pulling some of this information out and sending it to you, which might seem out of context. But you know what? We're the awakened new species. We're the emerging new species. Everybody is ready to take, everybody on this call, I know that for a fact, is ready to take this next leap forward. So whatever we can share with each other, this is what we can share with you. Besides, I want to rope you all into the community of the first interstellar universities. So just
Questions?
anyway, yeah.
Maybe it's appropriate now to ask anybody who's been through the process, if you have a reflection you want to share with the group, this might be the good time to do it.
How are we doing on time, Ole?
We've got maybe 15 minutes.
Okay. Is there anybody that's been on this, been through this with us that have any comments you'd like to make or any wisdoms you want to share? Sarah, you have to unmute yourself, Sarah.
Thanks, Stalin. The one I like the best, years and years ago, it came through Baha'i actually, and they said one of their guidelines that they live by is like don't kill people and that kind of thing, but also don't backstab when someone goes out of the room. And you have a very similar guideline. Bring it back into the group.
That's right.
I think it's so powerful. I think it's so destructive when people go out and they say, oh, this isn't right and that isn't right and that isn't right. We need to do it a little bit, but bring it back in. I think that's the only way to sort things out.
Exactly. That's how gossip starts. And gossip will begin to eat away at the foundation of anything. So thanks, Sarah. Anybody else? who's been on it. I can't see everybody, so unmute yourself if you want to share, whoever might have been on this.
Barbara, you're not,
Can you hear me? This is Barbara. I have a comment.
Now we
because
can hear you,
I
Barbara.
did go through your group. I did the whole thing, and it was in relationship to the Awakening the New Species, which was such a great combination. Because of course there are many, many groups that can use this brilliantly. I'm sure almost any group could use it. But I just want to add that when you use it in terms of becoming new and making a contribution to the next stage of evolution, you're carrying into that next stage of evolution some very fundamental behavior patterns which have ruined civilization up till now. So when you think of, let's say, that shift point between mass extinction and mass evolution, if we have so much new power, particularly in science and technology. I mean, we have powers of ancient God. So I always like to include that in order to use the powers of ancient gods well, we call it evolutionary love, which is only just really naming the impulse of evolution. But I think that when an evolutionary love is gaining powers of gods in the next stage of evolution, which is what we're working for collectively here, this becomes super important, because we can see clearly if we have powers of gods without this, we can have a nuclear accident, as my brother-in-law Daniel Ellsberg, nuclear accident. Well, it could lead to climate change and no more agriculture. So what used to be an accident on whatever scale, we were able to make these accidents, and we certainly had a lot of them. I'm just wanting to point out that the accidents of discord and anger at the level of powers of God has given the human species an opportunity for self-destruction as well as self-evolution that we never had before.
Yeah.
So I'm really affirming it in a very special way, and also, Jean, in terms of the intergalactic university and community and shared contact. We don't know that all the shared contact is good. That is to say, benevolent. We really don't fully know that. There's a lot of different opinions, as you well know. So if we are going to be involved in shared contact, however we're involved in it, if we are divisive and upset, we might attract just the wrong kind of shared contact. So if we are in harmony and learn how to do this, I mean, here's a kind of quantum thought. If we should have interaction with beings beyond this planet and we're not getting along with them, then we could take this the next step. Maybe you've already thought of doing that, but it would be probably true.
Yeah, it's this whole thing about humans have got to learn to get along with each other.
Yeah.
If we don't learn to get along with each other, then we create a field that draws to us in the universes that maybe aren't getting along with each other.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And so those of us that are here, those of us that are saying yes to this journey that we're on, the emerging new species journey, we are creating a field together. And that purposely I'm using the word we here. We're creating a field, a large field. It is creating a magnetic field. And it's already beginning to draw to the earth those beings that have been waiting a very long time for humans to grow up.
Right, and I'd like to add here too, if you take the Wheel of Co-Creation 2.0 and you put the deepest heart's desires at the hub of the wheel, where for me symbolically they actually exist, then, you know, every single group is affecting the whole culture.
That's right.
Because when you're at the heart of the hub of the wheel and you're picking up the impulse of evolution and you're incarnating the impulse as you, first of all, you're becoming a new human. If you really want to become a new human, I think that's the way you have to do it. So the incarnation of the impulse of evolution itself and embodiment. And so you have to be, not only do you need to be careful of your group relationships, but your own personal self-evolution. You know, what if you're not getting along with yourself?
Yeah, Barbara, let me say this. Thank you for saying that. I go to the clearing of the whole bone. When you begin to recognize that you yourself may be in chaos, recognize it, move through it, move through it. Because if you attempt to do something, make a decision when you're in a chaotic state, if you attempt to communicate with someone when you're in a chaotic state, then notice that what will happen is you'll just create more chaos.
Right.
So notice yourself when you are inside whatever the stages may be. But I keep coming back to keep clearing the hollow bone. As you clear the hollow bone, you'll be able to see clearly, you'll be able to hear clearly, and you'll be able to recognize where your own psychological health is.
Norwegians would tell us that if you have a banana in the didgeridoo, it won't play. So you got to clean the bananas out of the didgeridoo.
Exactly.
So is there anyone else that either has a question or somebody? Yeah, Cindy, go ahead.
Well, when you guys were just talking about how we're creating this field that's going to attract, you know, the benevolent beings, like that workshop was, I had no idea what I was doing. Open heart, of course. Wow, that sounds beautiful. And boy, it was really intense at some point. And I remember going, oh my God, this is really hard to sit here. I wanted to get up and I wanted to run at some point. And my whole body, I remember going, I just want to get out of here. I can't handle this. Like, it was really hard for me. And thank God we all got through it. And the intensity of the beautiful, you know, conclusion of the 3 days was worth those periods where I just wanted to run out of the house. And then when I left that night, I was so elevated, like, and again, because of the Humanities Team event as well, but the open heart process, I remember going through the airport the next morning, you know, and you have to go like this. I seriously, my heart felt like this. And I literally wanted, I felt like I could see in each person's eyes that I passed. I just wanted to love, like, I just wanted to hug them and say, I love you, because I know so many people have so much pain in their lives, and that's why we have it, I guess, because we have to grow. We have to have this pain. So that workshop helped me really, wow, like, see the pain that we all have. We all have pain. We all got shit. But the coming together and the power of how this workshop unfolded and the intensity of love was, wow. I could see when a lot of people take this, how this could really attract, like, put in that magnetic field that you guys are talking about, like, have such a huge effect in a beautiful, amazing shift on the planet. It lasted days. I mean, it was so powerful, this sensation, and it was so beautiful. And I lost a little bit of it because, you know, I do go out now and I don't feel that love that I felt when I was walking through that. I mean, I have the love, but, you know, it was so intense going through the airport that day. It was incredible. I wish I could bottle it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Keep clearing the hollow bone and you'll keep it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that reminder of writing that down.
We have about 2 more minutes. Is that correct?
Very short. Yes.
Hi,
dear. I want to say I was in the November meeting with you, and I'm recognizing, and actually it's more affirmation, that my deepest heart desire is to be in that space that we created and make the contact from that space. It is not with other beings. You said it, Barbara said it, you said it, Jane, is actually to be fully available, because none of us are from here. We are all those who have forgotten. It's just to make the connection 100% in that intimate place with one another. This is my deepest heart desire. And something else that I recognize under the education of the heart, I've been using almost the same process, which is actually avoiding the pain-taking mask of the heart, which is the mind, dying before dying, emptying oneself. These are the steps of becoming your own truth and just reclaiming yourself. It's just enormous gift. This is the must for me, and I have been aware of that since I have become attracted to the field that Barbara has created, and I've been with her since 2011. So hallelujah to this. The time has come to collectively that field.
Yeah.
My name is Sherwood. I got to be with you in November, and I am so grateful that you're sharing this. My experience out of leaving after the 3 days was that I felt a level of trust that I hadn't allowed myself to experience with other people ever in my life, based on the empathic deficiency of my, family of origin. So this was like kind of a threshold that I got to pass over as an individual to say, I can cultivate trustworthy relationships. And that's why I asked you guys to share it into this field. I'm sorry that I came in the heat you had frozen. Thank you.
Well, I think we'll bring Sherwood.
Thank you, Sherwood.
Thank you, and Nahid, thank you, and Cindy, thank you, and Sarah. I think we'll turn it back over to you, Ole. But let me just say this one piece, if I might. We will make sure that you get the information out here. I woke up one day when we had been taking a vision of a ceremonial dance that I had been given, and we were taking it all over the world. And I woke up one day with this thought, maybe it isn't about the dance at all, but how we treat each other as we create the experience. So I say to you, maybe it's not about all that we think it is about. Maybe it's about how we are treating each other as we take each step now that we are taking, moving forward into these next days. I love you guys. I enjoyed it.
It's yours, Willie.
I saw that Kimberly raised her hand many times and she never got the chance to say anything.
Okay, here I go. I am Kimberly. Years ago, I took the class with Werner Earnhardt, and I remember something so clearly. It was who I am being causes another person to be. It has always, always stayed with me. And this summer I was in Turkey. I did not speak the language. And I was staying in a home with some people in a cave. And, I worked with the ladies in the kitchen and we cooked together and everything. We didn't speak the language at all. And the whole time I was in the space of, I know these women have been through so much without a voice and yada, yada, yada. So I had such a high respect for them. And they had that for me. And when I was leaving, somebody that could speak English there, one of the ladies said, tell her I love her very much. And it just like sealed my whole vacation for me because we didn't speak the language. We were in heart space the whole time. It was so wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Christine. I just want to share something really quick that I learned in November. I'll try to be really quick, but there was sort of this friction that came up. One of the members of the group was saying that I had said some things that I hadn't. And I got very tense. And in my mind, I was thinking, why are you bringing this up into this group? I'm here trying to learn how to love people. Like it was perfect, but I didn't realize what a perfect opportunity. And what I said to her was, you said that I said this and I did not. And then I think it was Jean said, it's really helpful to say, I heard you say, rather than you said. And I really treasure that because it's so much less like accusatory. And if we're listening, it's really important to be able to, if we're going to repeat back, to just say, I heard you say, and then it's open. I was so grateful to be there. And I love the Hollow Bone. And I love you guys. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. There's one other piece, Oli, that I just now thought of. When you're speaking with another person, I know I have to monitor this on myself, is what do I want the result to be? If I have something to say to another person, what do I want the result to be? Am I attempting to step on them, destroy them? Hopefully not. Or do I want them to hear me? And if I want them to hear me, then I work very hard to speak in a way, to act in a way that will make it safe for them so that hopefully they can hear what I have to say. So I just offer that. Okay.
I just feel I want to make a statement too, and not only be the agenda keeper, because I feel that this is so important. There is so much love that we can share with the world and influence other people, as you said, Kimberly. And it's such an important mission that we have to be part of our personal awakening and practicing connection, caring, love with everybody. And part of our mission for us who are here right now is to help others who want to be in group processes to evolve themselves into higher skills for how humanity should work in the future. So I'm so grateful for you, Jean and John, for sharing your wisdom. We've just started the journey to move into higher intimacy and eventually into co-creation. It's a long journey. It will involve all of the world eventually. And we are pioneers, and what we're doing is so important and so beautiful. So thank you, Jean and John, and everybody who are part of this.
I would like to say something.
There are some practicalities I wanted to share as well before we have the final comments. See if I can manage this. Yes. How do we talk with each other? If we don't use email, and we're about 75 people have been emailing here, and it's kind of difficult to do that via email. And we do have the Open Hearts, the Oneness community site, where there's a tab called the Deepest Heart's Desire. And here there is a tab called for suggestions and inputs, and support and questions, and there's some archives. And if you have any suggestions, go in here. Nobody has made a suggestion yet. Press here on plus, and you can enter something. So that is one thing that I wanted to share, that there is a place where we can have a chat. Another thing we have talked about was to have a gathering at Sunrise Ranch. It was so wonderful last time, but I've talked to Sherwood, and it's no easy task. So she cannot do that next time. But if somebody feel like doing it, I would suggest to reach out to Sherwood actually to understand what it entails. And I'm sure you will get a lot of supporters, but somebody needs to step up and take the lead for that if it's going to happen. And finally, a practical thing is that right now, you all have in the invitation the list of all people. And I will share that with you each time I make an invitation. But if there are people who are joining groups or groups being created and they want to be part of this event, send the email address to me and I will include them in future invitations. We will probably meet again in a month or so. I'll send out an invitation to you. And one thing that we have talked about is to go through the introduction to the 52 codes that Barbara had mentioned that could be useful. And we have also some other thoughts about what we can talk about in this group going forward. So with that, I will kind of just leave it up for anybody, and particularly Heinz and Barbara, if you would like to say something to reflect on this gathering.
Yeah, Heinz, I want to say something. Really, I love you so much, Jean and John, and what you do is quite precious, and really appreciate it. And also, what I liked what Fried said about, and that is also my deepest heart's desire, where we go into the collective awakening, actually. That is my deepest heart's desire, and that is what I wish for, and it seems that it's happening. And also what I like, also frictions. So if something comes up in the group that seems like frictions, and I think that brings us to the next level, basically. So we should be grateful also for frictions that bring us to the next level of our evolution. And what I see also, I'm not so happy with the name Deepest Heart's Desire Groups, because I see, and that is also what Barbara said at the beginning, it's only a small part where we go, and I want to go and explore more what Barbara wants to bring next, and like the Wheel of Co-Creation, but that is even not it. The Wheel of Co-Creation 2.0, I think, and I'm interested to go there and see how that could be practical. I don't know yet where the Wheel 2.0 would be practical. I know where the Wheel 1.0 could be practical, but I would be interested how Wheel 2.0 would be practical. So I like everything what we did here, and it's great, and I hope we go on like this. Thank you.
In response to what you said about the thing about Wheel 2.0 as contrasted to 1.0 is it really has the dynamic of the evolution of the world and each of us as a component of it. And I'm just bringing up because it is the hardest thing for most people to think of as important, which is the meta context in which things are happening. You understand it, Heinz. And so it's not just I'm wanting to add the big story to it. It's that the stories create culture. And it's extremely important, since particularly this kind of group came out of the new story for me and for us, is that I would like this group to be, I'd like to be empowered more by this group to put forward the context and how it responds to mass extinction and mass evolution. I would like those larger contexts to feel welcome in this context. So that is my request, because it would be painful to me to have the Deepest Heart's Desires group self-replicate and have huge lists of people self-replicating without adding this, because this is not an add-on. the deepest heart's desire is an add-on into this. And because this is contextually so large and so difficult, people tend to forget it and ignore it. So I'm making my own heart's desire here is that this group helps us empower the new story deeply, and that anything that I can do to make that happen, I would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And we go into unknown territory, actually. That's also very important. It's about emergence, which is also the Wheel 2.0 in intimacy. Also, I would like to call those groups intimate groups in the sense of Eros, basically, which is 2.0 also to me. So, yeah, the unknown, the unexpected, and which also, Jean, you spoke about that also. We don't know what is emerging, and we would be surprised all the time, and that is great, actually.
Well, the interesting thing that's emerging is us. So whatever we are is emergent. And if we're in a relatively influential point on internet and media and outreach, we have an enormous impact ourselves. And however we behave, that's why it's so wonderful to have open heart, because as you say, if we're in conflict or if we're in criticism of each other, this won't work. But it's then when we move into social synergy, and we can actually do that, we're evolving democracy, we're evolving the entire big system. And our big system is failing. And so this is also another reason for the large context to always be included. So for that, I give thanks, and thank you, Ole. It was just, thank you, Jean and John. It was wonderful to hear you speak so clearly, and I'm going to say goodbye now.
Yeah, and I will just say practically, I will send out the link to the recording. We'll send Jean and John's material to you, and Heinz, Cindy, Helen, Sherwood, and I, with the help of Barbara, will invite you to another session in a month's time or so. And I hope we can infuse the world with fantastic connectivity and harmony and share our emerging love story. Thank you all. Wonderful.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Ole. Thanks, Jean and John.
Friday crashed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jane.
Hi,
Helen.
Hi, Helen.